everyone. I'm today at the UXDX conference to talk to you about product strategy for growth. I am Sri. You can call me Sreemati Lalguri Nisan or just simple Sri. I'm CPO at Bluecall, which is a startup that works with mental well-being for employees. I have worked previously in Fishbrain, Worldline, and the NHS in UK. This is just to give you a flavor of the different kind of company settings that I've worked and led product in the last 14 years. So now I'm working for a startup. I work for a growth scale up, but also an enterprise and a very public environment. So I bring all this experience into product leadership at Bluecall to help us develop our growth strategy. And that's the experience and the learnings that I want to share with you today. So what's Bluecall? We help millions of people across the world to improve their mental well-being. And how did we come about that? What's our journey? So Bluecall was founded in Q4 of 2016 by three amazing founders, Caroline, Tamara, and Lisa. So they were very young, starting new jobs, changing countries, moving states, and they kind of realized that there was not a place where they could talk about all the challenges that they go through at the same time. There were a lot of things they could talk to friends and families, but not everything. So they really realized that this was affecting their mental health and their well-being, and they couldn't access the healthcare from a preventative setting. So they started the mental health network of volunteers, where people who needed help to preventatively and proactively act on their mental health could actually reach out and get help. In 2018, they pivoted into a B2B setting because they found that there was a growing potential in B2B market to prevent costly mental health issues among employees in the workplace. By doing that, they were able to accelerate growth in the shape of SaaS company with a niche in preventative, complementing the traditional reactive healthcare solutions that we already had. So by end of 2020, they were like, okay, so what do we do next? What is beyond digital therapies? And that is where I came into place. I joined Bluecall in March 2020 to help them build their next product strategy. So what is the product strategy? What's the purpose of it? It is to set direction for the team to achieve the company's vision. So I have two images here. If you're not a bit Lord of the Rings fan, then in the first image, the dwarves are just lost in the Mirkwood forest. That's exactly what happens when you don't have a good product strategy. All the teams are going directionless in different directions because that is how they think that what the company wants. But by not having a strategy, everyone is going in different direction, but no one is able to reach the Blue Mountains. So by having a really strong product strategy, you make them in this how it is in the second image, where Bilbo Baggins just goes up the tree and looks at the Blue Mountain and says, okay, that's the direction we need to go to. And that's exactly what a strong product strategy does for a team. So how do you come to a product strategy, right? There are three very important elements to it. One is the building block, which is the basic foundation of the strategy. Then you also develop your strategy. Sometimes it's one strategy or multiple strategies that you need to do an option analysis for, which is what we did when we were starting with our product strategy. And then finally is the most important part for me for any companies, but especially for startups and growth companies, is the validation part. And I'm going to walk you through each and every one of these steps and also kind of highlight what were the challenges that we experienced and how we overcome that, and what was a lesson learned for us from this experience. So first, what is a building block? So it's basically all the different components that you really need to be able to put your product strategy together. Some of these components are probably already existing, or if you're a very new startup, you might have to build up many of these components. In a lot of existing companies, some of these components are existing but outdated and never kind of looked into what is the company vision now? Does it make sense from when it started? So I think these are good elements to have and re-question as well if you already have, if you're working on your product strategy. So that's exactly what we started to do. I've shared the very strong company vision we have had from Bluecall from its inception in 2016 to now. And we still think that this is a very valid problem. Not everyone is happy at work. Number one reason for sickness is stress in Sweden, and also one of the top 3 reasons in Europe. So happiness is still related to mental health, and if there is mental health one of the biggest reason, we still think that we have a huge potential to make a lot of people happy by through providing them focus on their mental health. Secondly, the business goals, and this is where the company is trying to decide, okay, should we have a growth path? Should our goal is to grow? Should we be profitable? If we want to do a bit of both, which area of your business you want to be profitable and which area you want to grow has to be very, very clear. Because I have worked in organizations where the sales team is going towards growth, and then for the same product area, the product team is told to be operationally profitable, and they are always in conflict in terms of what is the business goal they're trying to achieve. So I really think that a strong cohesive product goal for a product area is very important. So the sales, the marketing, the operations, the product, they can all head towards that same KPI. And also when you're doing a product strategy, don't just look at the smaller adjustments. You might have to sometimes look into drastic changes. Is this really a goal? For example, one of the question that we had was, should part of our product strategy be increasing the number of sessions just as we have? And what would we gain from that? Would we be able to solve some of the problems for the users or the customers by doing that? Or should we completely get rid of digital therapies? So I think you should be very bold when you're doing the product strategy work to be able to question the status quo as well. But it's most important thing is to have a very cohesive direction in which you're going. Then if you have any product performances, that's really good to have, especially talking about how successful your existing product had been, if the product is meeting the business goals or not. This kind of gives you an idea of if there are problems or patterns of problems, why the users are not using it, why the customers are not happy, and if you're not achieving the business goals. All these data really helps. And there are many cases in which the product performance is really not known. Then I would just say run some spikes or tests to just kind of understand where your product is at this given time. This is a really important part of the building block to be able to have a good data-driven strategy. It could be as simple as just sending a survey to your top customers telling, okay, are you happy with the product? What's missing? What's not missing? Sometimes it could be a simple start, but it's a great start. It's better to have data than to have no data. And then one of the other important part is the competition. Having a good understanding of where your competitors are, where they were before. Is your competition landscape has changed? Are you still advocatedly differentiated? For example, for Bluecall, it was very relevant to ask this question. Okay, we wanted to give preventative healthcare and focus on digital because that is what the traditional provider not doing at that time in 2018. Is that still relevant? Is it still relevant to be digital? Is it still relevant to be preventative? Is it still relevant to be anonymous? Because those were our really value differentiating product at that time. Value differentiating USPs. Is that still relevant? And if they are still relevant, is the competition still doing it? Is that still differentiatingly relevant for us? I think we question all of those status quos as well, and seeing where our competitors were, and if we were still being uniquely different from rest of the providers in the market. And then what I encourage all the product people to do, especially when you want to look at things very differently. I think this mindset I got when I was working with Spotify during our collaboration when I was at Worldline. They said, like, I asked them one question, like it was just over some social event, and I just asked them, like, who is your biggest competition? And then they were like, yeah, YouTube. And I was like, yeah, but they don't do any subscription. They were like, yes, but they are the one who are the closest to taking all the users from us. So just even if it's a free video streaming company, for a music streaming company, it was relevant to consider them as their one of the top competitors. And that has always made me think about looking a little bit outside the box. So who is our competition now? Are they still relevant? Are we differentiated? What are people doing in our closer markets, or the markets that we're likely to expand? Even if we have not expanded yet, we are likely to expand, or we would want to expand. What are people doing there? What are people doing in the world? But also, what are people doing in a similar field like the mental health tech? What is the B2C trend? What are the drivers there? How things are changing? I think all of these information is very relevant. So don't look at your direct competitors, also look at indirect competitors, and what does that mean to your product strategy. And then we also look into the market, which is the first thing I already said when I was talking about the competitors. What are the drivers like? Looking beyond the competitors, is some disruption happening there, which could be relevant for your own sense? So we actually looked into other app, which is more mindfulness. We are not doing mindfulness per se, but it's part of well-being. So we see a lot of disruption in Calm, Headspace, and other B2C psychological service provider like Talkspace, and the local provider like Mindler. We were really seeing like what's happening there, what's not happening there, and why it's relevant to us. Is it relevant to us? So we looked at those market drivers, and one of the questions that we stepped back and asked, like, are their users similar to our users? Then what is the positioning that we should have? Should person be paying for that service? Could be positioned in a way that by providing the service, the employees, you are really increasing your employer branding because you say that you care, so you don't need to pay for those services. We offer it to you because we think your happiness is important. So is that a differentiating factor for us in our positioning? So we look into those things as well. We look into the trends, what is the technology and regulatory trends, because instead of looking them as challenges, you could look at it from a different lens, see, okay, are these opportunities relevant to us? Will this enhance or future-proof your product? So for example, like now there is a labor law update on how to do preventive and rehabilitation for workplaces, and what is the employer responsibility. And we see that a lot of this conversation is now moving towards preventiveness. And this is regulatory. You might think it's boring, but for us, it's a really important trend, showing to our customer group that, see, it's not preventative is not just a nice to have thing, it's become a must to have thing, because it's regulatory, it's going to become a regulation from 1st of June. So look into those things as well. And finally, look into your ecosystem, because that will give you a possibility to say, okay, with your existing product line, is there a possibility for you to grow with the partnership through value-adding products? So for example, sleep measurements are one of the key part of mental well-being. So should we be doing statistics or capturing this information ourselves, or can we piggyback on other sleep apps that could give us relevant information on giving, identifying risk where people are having mental health problems, and giving them the relevant training or everyday actions to help them. So I think those kind of ecosystem opportunities help you in understanding where you can partner with people in your own space or in related space to grow. So Sounds like a lot of things, right? But this is what we did. We knew if we wanted to set up the perfect building block, we could just do it forever. So instead of doing it forever, we just decided, no, we're going to time box. Our time box for building blocks is going to be for a week. And we're going to focus on stakeholder interviews. We're going to focus on market research. We're going to use all the internal data that we have, even the ones that we've not used in the past or that has been underutilized in the past. So for example, one of the key things that we saw into is like, okay, we have a lot of if we say that we have a problem in converting a customer because we have a higher conversion cycle for sales, but we have a very high retention rate. So how could a customer who was not like who didn't know that this was a product that they needed, but at the end they're super happy, we have like 80 to 90% retention rate. Why is that? How could we use that conversation into our into statistics and conversation into our pre-sales activities? So that is an example of how you can look at data differently. So it's not just for customer success, but it's also to motivate your to your new potential customers on why these things are very, very relevant and why these customers continue to be with us, because it's not just about nice to have, it is a must to have, and why they think that way. And what was very helpful is to use the lean canvas. We still use the lean canvas because it's very simple to explain to stakeholders who have never worked with product strategies before. It's very easy to evolve with. So for example, like if you are in a stage where you're still trying to understand your customer segment and your problems, you can just focus on that area and utilize that area. But then you can iteratively build up the rest of the areas. Like, okay, if we're solving this problem, what is unique enough? Then what could be the solution? What could be, next part of these conversations, like channels or unfair advantage? So you can really build it up. So I would really recommend you to look into Ask Mayur's lean canvas if you've not used that before. You can use any other method. So I'm not saying like this is the best method. It just works for us because it would scale with our needs, and we found it very helpful. So that is what basically we started to do. We put 1 week, we started to put all this information, and we started to say, okay, do we know who our customer segment is? Do we understand their problems? Is our existing solution solving that problems? I would definitely recommend to go that path, because a lot of people start with, okay, this is our solution. Who are our customers? What are the problems we're starting? But then you're starting focusing on the wrong place, because then you're too invested in the solution that you have. Always look at who is your customer now, who had been your customer, why they have changed, is the problems the same, is our solution solving that problem? That's a good way to go. So we time boxed ourselves for a week. It was a lot of heads put together, a lot of people having a lot of discussions, a lot of people invested in finding this data. But I think that creates a kind of focus as well that is very good when you're doing the product strategy work. So after doing all this wonderful building block data collection and data understanding, what did we land with? We identified one of our biggest problems, that our user segments have changed. The mindset in which we introduce the product to the customer and the user in 2018 is drastically different in 2020. And so our problem solution statement solution really needed to be reassessed. So we were not sure that these were still the problems and this was still the right solution. So this was one of the biggest challenges that we identified when we did our building block exercise. Cool. So what happens next? So we took this challenge into our next part of our process, which is the development process. So first, I will talk to you about the product strategy, what is the development process and what it meant for Bluecall, and then kind of also address the fact how we incorporated what we identified as our challenge into our development process. So as you can see, first thing that we actually did when we started developing our strategy is to try to understand who are the personas. Who are the personas is a very good way to say not just the users and the buyers. So you need to focus on both of them. So who are your buyers now? Who are your users now? What are the problems of the users? What are the challenges or the benefits that the buyers is trying to gain? And if you're ever in conflict of buyers versus users, I will always say put the focus on the user personas, try to understand the problems first rather than focusing on the buyer. Because if you have a really good value proposition for the users, you're solving their problem, making them happy, the buyers, if they're different, they will automatically buy it. It's just you need to shift the conversation towards the buying side of the discussion. So when you're doing your persona work for product strategy development, focus on the users first. What we did was we did a lot of open-ended interviews of the existing customers. We also did a lot of open-ended interviews of different potential users and also the existing users, because as I said to you, our user segment has shifted. So we really didn't know who was our exact user target. So kind of we did like a flavor sample of different groups as well. And what does, by doing this persona work, what it really helps you is to put the focus back to the user. So you're really focusing on their problems rather than focused on your own solution. So once we did our persona work and we kind of started to see the patterns of problems that we really wanted to solve for the user to achieve our vision, but also would translate into the buyer's benefit, we started to map them into which market do we want to look into that has most of these personas, so we can have the highest impact in that market, but also in terms of like problems with the well-being is that we know. So for example, tech company usually has 70% 70% unhappy or like burnout rates compared to other industry. So we started to look into macro data to see if we had some mental well-being problems. And if we didn't have statistics in Swedish level, we tried to look at it Nordic level or European level or the global level. It's always the user problem per se, the way you address them might be different, but the problems might be relatable in some ways. So that is what we did. If we didn't have local, luckily the Swedish government does a really tremendous work in mental health statistics in workplaces, so we were very fortunate. But I do know that other industries, there's always this challenge. Then I would say look beyond your own current market. And what we started to do was map out the problem that most of our personas are facing in that market segmentation versus the impact that we could create, what we call as the affinity towards the Bluecall value proposition. So our personas were likely to be someone who was working in an agile company. Our personas were likely to be person whose company was going through a digital transformation. So we really started to map that to understand who exactly is the industry that we wanted to target on. So the next step, I've talked a lot about the competitive analysis already, so I'm not going to go into the details, but we looked into this from the aspect of how their business is set up, what are the potential reach that they're going to look into. So for example, a company, if a company is in UK, are they likely to grow in Europe or move to US? So that's kind of gave us an idea about what kind of growth potential were they looking at. We also look at the product offering, what they were offering in the past, what are they offering now, and what they're expecting to offer in future. And some of this information you can get if they've done an investment round, or you can get from the company side. You don't get all the information, but most you can kind of tie a dot. And why this was really important for us is for us to see if remember I said like we challenge ourselves, like our digital session still a relevant way to solve this problem. So we really wanted to look into companies who have offered digital therapies. Do they continue to offer it? Do they continue to offer something different? And if they have stopped doing it, why they have stopped doing it, so we could get that information into our product strategy development. And then, of course, very interesting, like how they're positioning themselves, preventative or proactive, what was the marketing strategies they were using, what is the digital channels they're using, because the market is still struggling with having the conversation around mental health and workplaces. There is a lot more awareness than before, but there's still a lot of stigma involved. And we wanted to understand what kind of using digital channels or marketing strategy, was it working for others or not? In what way could we have some relatable experience to take into our product strategy? So how did we do that? Again, we knew that focusing on our customers and their problem was really, really key to us. So we put 2 weeks of dedicated time to do customer interviews, user interviews, really looking into our data quantitatively and qualitatively, a lot of collaborations with different stakeholders, because how much of interviews you do, what is the experience that your salespeople have had so far in the ground? What is the experience your customer success team has had? What is the experiences your tech team has had? I think those are very important part of this discussion, but also they feel involved and they feel part of the strategy work. So we did a lot of continuous collaboration and continuous feedback throughout these 2 weeks, telling, putting people in the shoe of the user, what the user is thinking, what are the main problem themes, and why are they problem, why that problem is different from before, and what does that mean to the customer. So at the end of this 2 weeks work, and also we use a leaner version of the lean canvas, which really helps you focus on the customer segments, their problems. As a result of this work, what we came into is a very clear understanding of who is our users that we want to target, what are their real problems that we want to solve, how does that relate to the customers that we want to sell to, what are their goals, what are their pain points, what the benefit they're looking into investing in this for their users, and how, based on the competition and the market trend, how could we uniquely solve this problem for the user and create benefit for the users. I think those are the most important aspect for us in that we came out of this work in the 2 weeks time. Wow, that seems a lot of work, but it was the most fun part of the work. I love talking to the users, I love talking to the customers, and I think my whole team really enjoyed it. Just seeing the user's problem really puts them makes them very relatable to not only value that they create, but also how they want to solve it. So what did we do next? We spent 1 week to just do a solution analysis. So we kind of like use a version of the design thinking double diamonds to say, okay, these are our problems. Now we've really narrowed down the problems that we want to solve for these users. Now, what are the different options that we have to solve these problems? And here I would just say, do a very high level alternatives. Don't go into a lot of details, like exactly how we would be. If you think that you want to go to the tech route, use data, create the network effect, and build an AI to solve this problem, then that's good enough information to say whether you can do an evaluation based on the usability, based on the viability or the feasibility. Don't go into a lot of detail. So that's what we did. We kept the information very high level. Again, going back to our lean canvas that we use, you can read the definition there, and that was very helpful because we kept it to that level that everyone could understand how we would solve this problem, but we were not going to go into the details of this, how we would exactly solve this. So this was a very high level approach. Once we had that, we evaluated each of this approach for those 3 factors that I talked about: usability, viability, and feasibility. I am not going to go into the lens of those discussions because, you know, if you read Marty Kagan's books or Roman Pilcher's Strategize, you can get a lot more information than I have to share. We use some examples or theories from there, which we applied ourselves. But what we really focused on was 3 factors. Emphasis on the solution creating a unique value to the user. What is the best customer experience we could provide to our customers with that specific solution? And our confidence as the team right now in delivering and scaling the solution approach. So I think that those were the 3 important factors that we looked into. we used a very simple methodology called high impact, low effort, and we just started to prioritize these things to see which of them were bigger bets that we wanted to take, which of them were more inclined towards bigger bets and easy wins rather than money pits. And how you do that is just now is a good time when you have a good understanding, maybe one or two solutions are leading, then you start to like dissect them into some bigger chunks, especially identifying what are your biggest assumptions, what is the biggest and fastest learning opportunity in any of these solution approach. If something will take you 6 months to implement and then learn something, rather you can learn 6 different things about your biggest apprehension in 6 weeks, we would rather choose the second one. And then also, as I said earlier, our degree of confidence in selecting one of these options. So for example, like we were much more confident about giving the best customer experience rather than building the best tech product. That doesn't mean that we are not a tech-driven company. We are a tech-driven company, but we are not aspiring to become Google. So, you know, it's a differentiation. What was our confidence level in delivering this solution and scaling this? Great. So 3 weeks of intense work, and we succeeded together as a team to come with a mission. Our mission was to become the employer's preferred, trusted, and loved well-being partner in preventing mental well-being issues among their employees and managers. So you can see that we started to have really persona discussions, and that really identified 2 major personas that we had. And here, I'm like, this is a very simplified view, but we also went to the level of saying, what are the kind of managers that we really want to impact? So the first-time managers or managers. So, you know, we went up to that level of details to really understand who is exactly the manager that we want to target, or who is exactly the kind of employees we want to target as well. So this is a great mission. I really believe in this every day. Our team believes in it, and we live by this every day. And then we also went to our solution approach, which is the how are we going to deliver our mission. So Bluecall wants to improve the mental well-being in the workplace by being the employees and managers everyday challenges, by solving that, and in private life. How we would do that is by providing them a toolkit with products and services that are achievable, that are actionable, and that are measurable. So nothing like sitting in workshop for 2 days and not being able to practice it. How can, like you brush your teeth every day to take care of your tooth, how can I work on mental well-being every day, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour every day, to really feel healthy in my mind and to be happy? So that was really, really important for our users, and that was very important for our solution approach. And we designed to lower the barriers to act proactively, and also data-driven and science-based. Then, what are the challenges that we faced in this? This was not, it sounds like we have done a lot of work, but it also raised up a lot of challenges, because we were very unclear if the market drivers in B2C, which we have translated into a solution approach, would that really create the value for the B2B users? This is a completely new product stack and tech stack, which meant our collective confidence in the effort estimation was very low. So we never knew whether it will take, we couldn't say with higher degree of confidence whether it take 2 months, whether it take 2 weeks, whether it take 2 years. Like, you know, of course, 2 years is an exaggeration, but 2 weeks, 2 months, it's a big difference for a life of a startup. And also, we knew that we needed to experiment, we needed to learn, and we also needed to show results very quickly. Yeah, that is exactly how we felt. Wow, we have done all this work, but now it's like feeling like Rolf tumbling down the wheel. Like it seems like a bigger challenge now. But never be faced. That's exactly what we did. As I said, for a growth startup, the third phase is the best and most fun, but the most important phase, the validation. And we converted all our challenges to opportunities by rapid validations. So this is a diagram from Strategize book. It says, select your biggest risk, decide on what to address, collect the data, pivot, preserve, or stop. A lot of this concept is taken from a lean startup as well, but I think this is exactly what we did. So we decided for our company to create the best results, to learn fast, to fail fast, we needed to have hypothesis-driven development. This would help us create really good understanding of the impact. This will help us create a better effort estimation cycles, but also collectively increase our confidence towards the strategy to say whether we should work with the strategy or not, or do we need to completely change it. So we did some smart low-cost validations like surveys, smoke tests, user interviews, MVPs, but we also at the same time did smaller chunks of smell or slice the onion. So we time boxed a lot of analysis, we did a lot of spikes, we got data from the past to understand our effort, we leaned into other departments. So we didn't think that we needed to create all this impact understanding or effort understanding just by doing everything tech. We also said, okay, what is the most minimum we can do? Can we use just Typeform to do assessment and see what the impact we have? And then is it worth for us to do the estimation? This also created like a prototype that would give us a better understanding of which part of this problem we wanted to scale or automate first into a solution for our product offering. Finally, all of this work in the last 6 months since we built the strategy was aimed to increase our confidence level to 70%. So collective confidence. So it's not just product having confidence in the strategy or tech being confident in effort estimation, but it's also like operations is really confident about it. Customer success are able to measure the impact on the customer success from this experiments or activities. The sales is able to see the results in the conversion. So all of that translates into the outcome, which is why what always is very interesting for everyone. So in the last 6 months, since we have implemented this, we saw 4x increase in our monthly active usage. In the Q4 2021, we had 20% increase in the MMR just from the existing customers. So this was a very big proof point for us that by adding on the product offering using this strategy, our customers were even willing to pay much higher instead of themselves. So that was a really good proof point that this was working from a customer success and sales point of view. And also we saw that by pitching this to the customers, we were able to increase our sales conversion rate. So that increased about 3x in the sales cycle. So these are great results. So we knew that this strategy is a keeper. What does that mean for our future, right? Learning from the validation work, what we have learned is that we as a team, as an organization, need to always have a clear understanding of who our customers is, who our users is, and that is really the key to our product strategy success. I think because we spent the most amount of time in our product strategy work around the customers and their problem, I think we build on the best foundation, best building blocks that we could. So I think I would very confidently say that that really aided our validation work as well. And having this hypothesis mindset, because I see a lot of product team like, oh, the team should do it, but the leadership team is so stuck with their vision, so stuck with their own strategy of how to do things. But I think it's very important that you yourself have that mindset, so you create that culture of experimentation. You create the fast learning experience to increase your learning curve and contribute to that good enough mindset so that you can move forward with each of these experiments and learning. And I think for a growth team, I think that we didn't stop with that 6 months work. I mean, like, we iterated on our strategy, and we are always saying we continuously evaluate it. So anyone who starts in the product team, I always say to them that this is our strategy and direction now, but it might be very different in 6 months' time. It might be very different in a year's time. But that doesn't mean that we're not heading in the right direction. It just means that we are very adaptable to our users' need, to our circumstances. Our ultimate goal is our company mission, which is to increase the happiness for millions of people by improving their mental health. And as long as we're getting there, how we get there is always adaptable. So what are the challenges that we see? Scaling our product strategy, work with a rapidly growing team, how to continuously have these conversations with customers and user feedback, how can we build it into every part of our product development process. I think that's going to be a challenge that both product and tech leaders are continuously talking in Bluecall. We want to communicate these changes so that we create a continuous alignment across our department. We see that that would also be a challenge, and that we need to address that. Creating that collective focus, because as I said, sometimes that work in progress mindset can mean that, oh, what is my work going to contribute to if it's going to change in a year or 6 months? Would I need to drastically do something different? And I think you need to remove that, and you need to really help them focus into the collective goal, that the goal is not how you are doing it. The goal is to achieve the vision, to create value to the users, to make our customers happy. And those KPIs, however we hit them, is the most important thing. So I think that collective focus is always going to be important part of a product leader in a work in progress mindset, and creating that shared understanding of impact and effort across your end-to-end chain. So not only in your strategy level, but also in your backlog of sprint development, like what does impact means? What does this effort mean? How does strategy impact and effort translate into my sprint backlog? I think it needs to be really, really shared, and so that you can move forward together. And I think how we're going to do that with a growing team is something that Bluecall will focus on. So key takeaways: product strategies for growth is always a work in progress, and you have to continuously validate them. Start with strong foundation. It doesn't need to take a long time. We have proven in Bluecall that we can do that one week of collective work together as a team. Hypothesis-driven approach needs to be end-to-end. So it's not just at the implementation level. It needs to start with the leadership at the strategy level and go all the way till the implementation. And time boxing strategy work really, really helps, because it's so important not to get stuck in meeting rooms and actually go out and talk to your users, go out and talk to your customers. And by time boxing these things, you really focus on the most important data. You really focus on the most important details. So I really encourage that. I don't think that this is just for startups or growth companies. I think this should be for everyone. Stop sitting in meeting rooms for 3 months just to come up with a strategy. Stay continuously aligned with continuous feedback, not only from your external sources of customers and users, but also internally. So good readings for you all to have is the 2 books I have mentioned during this presentation. And thank you very much. And feel free to stay in touch with me or invite me for a product fika, very Swedish thing to do. You can send me an invite in the LinkedIn or add me in the Clubhouse. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.